right, good afternoon, everybody. It's 12 o'clock on the dot, so we'll go ahead and start today's Friday legislative webinar. For those I haven't met yet, I'm Patty Mulvihill, the Executive Director. If you've not yet already done so, please make sure that two things have happened. One, that you've muted your microphone, and two, that you identify yourself by your name and your city. We ask for the city designation because we try to call on our city members before members of the general public during the question and answer phase. So by you putting in what city you represent, you help us make sure that we bump you to the top of the line. For today's webinar, we're going to break this down into three segments. The first, we're going to talk about current and top bills from this past week. Then the second piece will be about a generalized legislative update. And we're going to finish today with some emerging issues that we're seeing that we think you all need to be aware of. So within those three separate segments today, we're going to discuss 5 specific bills in front of the Oregon legislator. We're going to have one matter of federal concern, and then we're going to get a status update on the framework for the forthcoming transportation package. For those who like to know in advance what we're going to discuss today, the 5 bills here in the Oregon legislature are going to be House Bill 3746 that deals with reforms to condo defect liability. The second one will be House Bill 3556, which deals with local transient lodging tax flexibility. We've talked a lot about that one this session. The third one will be Senate Bill 1153 that deals with water right transfers. The fourth one will be Senate Bill 65. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the -4 amendments. This deals with damages for violations of Article 1 of the Oregon Constitution. And the last specific bill in the Oregon legislature will be House Bill 3634 that deals with water operator training programs. We're going to try and provide you with enough information today to hopefully answer most of your questions. If we don't get there, you are allowed to ask questions. We just ask that you wait until we're done with all presentations. You can put your question in the chat. You can also raise your virtual hand. Staff will do our best to make sure that we call on you in the order in which we see that you've either raised your hand or put your question in the chat. So we're going to start with our top legislative bills from this week. We've got 4 of them. We're going to start today with Alexandra Ring. You've heard a lot from Alexandra this session. She is our housing and land use and homelessness lobbyist. Alexandra, today I think you're going to talk specifically about House Bill 3746 and how it relates to condo defect liability reforms. What's the bill do and why do we care about it from the city perspective?
So for a number of years, we'll kind of turn the clock back. A number of our cities have been taking a crack at addressing condo defect liability reform. So in Oregon, we have a very permissive, I guess you would say, condo defect law. You have a lot of time during which you can sue the developer, and it requires very few of the condo residents to actually get in on the lawsuit for there to be an injunction on anyone selling, things like that. And that makes it really high risk for people to move into condos, and it makes it really high risk for the developer, the construction company, all of that to build condos. And what that's done is kind of rendered condos a thing of the past in Oregon. We have a lot of condos that were built in the 70s through 90s, and they really kind of stopped being built on the large scale in Oregon 10 to 20 years ago, which is when our law changed to kind of this more permissive statute. The goal, and cities and housing developers and the Oregon Trial Lawyers Association have been coming together trying to negotiate an agreement. We think they're there. We're expecting to see an amendment later this week before it has its hearing. We think they're there. Well, you think we could potentially be in a position where we could start seeing condos being built again in Oregon? We're asking folks to reach out to their representative and talk about why this is important, why having another source of affordable homeownership is vital to our state.
Thanks, Alexandra. And just to be clear, we're supportive of this bill because we think it will open up a new housing market that might meet some of our workforce and affordability needs.
That's it exactly, Patty.
Okay. And do we have a date for the hearing next week yet?
Yes, it is. It will be on the 2nd, which will be next Wednesday.
Okay. And right now we're just asking, are you asking for members to provide testimony or just to submit written testimony or just contact legislators or all 3?
Submit written testimony and contact your legislators. There are a lot of, kind of hesitance in addressing this, primarily because of some of the messaging that they've heard from the Trial Lawyers Association. So really trying to get folks out there to talk about why we need more workforce housing, why we need more affordable homeownership.
Is the link available that we can drop in the chat for people to submit written testimony to?
Yes, I will. I will also drop my contact information in the chat if anyone has any additional questions.
Thanks, Alexandra. Appreciate it. Next up, we're going to move to a bill that we should all be familiar with by now. That's House Bill 3556. Jenna Jones, who just probably popped on your screen, is our tax and finance lobbyist. Jenna's been working really hard this session to try and meet one of the league's main priority objectives, which is to provide you at the local level greater flexibility for use of your local transient lodging tax dollars. Jenna, what do we need to know today about House Bill 3556?
Yeah, thanks, Patty. I thought that I was going to be coming here with good news today. I was very hopeful at the start of this week that 3556 would have gotten worked and moved from one committee to House Revenue, so it would be immune from deadlines. Unfortunately, our transient lodging tax priority bill has been carried over twice in a row for work sessions. It has to be worked out of committee by, I believe, April 9th to continue to stay alive. We have one member of the Emergency Management, General Gov, and Veterans Committee out on medical leave. And we have 3 votes yes that are secured and 3 votes no we keep needing to secure a 4th vote. So we know that local lodging taxes continues to be it is always a spicy issue in the legislature. So for folks who are in Representative Scarlatos's district, Representative Lewis's district, and Representative Boyce's district, I know a lot of you have reached out to your legislators, but we continue to need to secure their votes, one of their votes, to get the bill to move to House Revenue Committee. So if you could continue to do that, reach out. We've gotten some commitments and we're going back and forth. So we really need to get those locked down before our next chance to move the bill is on April 1st, which is Tuesday. So any extra outreach you can do would be really appreciative. If this vehicle of the bill ends up dying, we will try to see if there are other bills that we can amend to carry this forward, or else we'll have to wait till next session.
Jenna, is there any arguments that you think would be more persuasive to those three representatives, or data points that would be helpful for when cities reach out to them?
I think the biggest things that we've heard some confusion on is about who pays the tax for a transient lodging tax. It is a tax on the visitor themselves. It's not a tax on hotels. So the hoteliers collect it on behalf of the city in some cases and get 5% administration fee off the top. So making it very clear that this is a tax on visitors, not a tax on hotels. I would share with your legislators how, even if this change happens, which would allow you more flexibility on the preempted 70% of dollars in a post 2003 transient lodging tax to be used on services in addition to tourism promotion and tourism related facilities. How your city will likely still spend some amount of money on tourism would be helpful. I think the other thing that I, in digging through some of the state's research on local lodging taxes, is Travel Oregon did a survey in 2018, and that showed that 78% of TLT revenues are actually coming from short-term rentals. So the market has shifted. We knew this kind of anecdotally, that there are more and more short-term rentals that are hosting visitors, that were charging for lodging tax. That was a big fight in about 2017, 2018. But now we have data to say 78% of these tourists are occupying spaces that aren't in our main downtown core or commercial districts like a hotel, right? They are now like embedded in our cities in these short-term rentals. So they're using more and more community infrastructure like your parks, your roads, your water system. And so I think those are the main points, is that visitors are the ones who are paying the tax, that the impacts are not confined just to hotels anymore, and that flexibility is a local option in this bill, and you all have economic development professionals and want a good, thriving community that includes your business and tourism industry, but you might be able to right-size it.
Thanks, Jenna. And you said that the next chance to move the bill is April 1st. What is that chance actually?
It's at this point, it continues to be 50-50. So there is a really big chance that it moves on Tuesday, but we need your help. And I appreciate all the help we've gotten up to this point.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate that. So you heard Jenna, if we want local taxes, local flexibility, we're going to need to push and get at least one more vote. So Jenna's information is in the chat. She can help you there. And this is one of our top priorities. So if you need more help than what we've provided so far, please reach out to Jenna. We'll see what we can do to help you with any written testimony or comments you need to make to those legislators. We're going to pivot now to water issues. I'm going to ask Michael Martin. He is our water lobbyist to pop online. Michael's going to talk to us today about Senate Bill 1153. It's a bill which will impact our ability to transfer water rights. So Michael, what's going on with the bill and what do our members need to know?
Yeah, absolutely. So right at the top, need to know, just pay close attention to this bill. This is a governor's bill, Senate Bill 1153. It's one of a suite of bills dealing with water right transfers and the most likely one to carry forward. We had a bit of an intense hearing. That we have some good news is Senator Przansky during the hearing asked the governor's office directly if there could be a municipal carve out for this water transfer bill, because as written, it is a threat to cities. Water right transfers are an important tool for our utilities to manage water. And without this tool, for example, and as it's written, if someone was going to do a seismic upgrade to their intake or move it, this bill, as it's written, would subject cities to litigation from outside interest groups. So we had an opportunity to clarify, because there seemed to be confusion, that municipal drinking water utilities are subject to numerous regulatory requirements, environmental standards. We made this clear. I think that has been missed and in earlier conversations. And good news going forward is we have been asked to put together some folks to participate in negotiating what what the bill is going to look like going forward. So encourage you, I'll put the bill in the chat. Just if you receive any updates, requests on this bill, please pay attention to them on Senate Bill 1153.
So Michael, a couple follow-ups. When Senator Przansky asked the governor's staff that, do I take it the fact that we're now included in a work kind of session, work group, does that mean that the governor is open, or at least her staff indicated there may be some openness to carving out municipal water rights?
During the hearing, no, there was no indication they were open to that. However, the fact that this table is being set, I think, is at least a positive signal. But again, it's going to be a pretty tough negotiation on what the details look like in this, the unique, like where municipalities are unique in this and sort of water transfers discussion.
Who do our members need to be talking to? Is it their legislators? Is it people on the committee? Is it the governor's staff? Who should we be having these conversations with?
Legislators. And again, I want to emphasize why I brought this up is just if I send out anything on this, updating, when it's time to contact state legislators, please pay attention to those updates is my request.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, pivoting away from Michael, we're going to head over now to one more priority bill from this current week, and that's Scott Winkles. Scott's our general government lobbyist. Most of you are familiar with him. He's working hard on Senate Bill 65, specifically some -4 amendments, and how that bill deals with damages for violations of Article 1 of the Oregon Constitution. Scott, before you jump right into the bill, I think we should assume that not everybody on the call is intimately familiar with the specific articles of our Constitution. Can you start by explaining what Article 1 is first, what the bill then does to it, and what it means for our members? Oops, we can't hear you, Scott.
Oh,
There we go. Now we can.
okay. Something going on with the mic. So Article 1 of the Oregon Constitution, a lot of people call it Oregon's Bill of Rights, but that's not technically correct. So it does have some protections for freedom of religion, freedom of expression, protections against double jeopardy, similar to what you would see in the federal constitution, but it has, I believe, 47 sections to it, whereas our bill, the federal bill, has 10, the first 10 amendments. And so it protects a number of things up to and including the right to health care, which was passed by the voters. What the bill will do with the -4 amendment is allow a plaintiff to seek damages and require an agency to pay their attorney's fees for violations within Article 1 of the Oregon Constitution. And so it's an interesting conversation on the bill because everybody thinks it's going to help people who are friendly to them without thinking about the ramifications of this bill. And so what we believe will happen is that anytime a city is sued in a standard tort claim, whether it's a police claim or cleaning a homeless camp or some activity like that, someone will attach an Article 1 complaint to it, so their attorney's fees will be covered. This means people will not have an incentive to settle cases. Cases will be more expensive, and it's really going to be open season on public agencies for claims. And so what we saw this week, the Oregon Appellate Court reversed a conviction for a very serious criminal, I won't go into the details of which, but several A-level felonies on the grounds of the interview was not conducted properly while the person was in custody. And so if you have an appellate court that's going to make novel rulings and reverse these convictions, you've now also exposed that agency to damages. And so you would have somebody suing a city for based on a novel ruling from the novel set of facts and reasoning from Oregon's appellate court. We anticipate the bill will, with the amendment, would cost the CIS pool about $9.4 million a year. And that's mostly going to be in attorney's fees, not so much in damages, but it's in attorney's fees. And so the activities we're worried about this bill impacting it's not just law enforcement, but again, things like cleaning homeless camps, trying to enforce community livability standards, all of those things. If a person can attach a constitutional claim to it, Article 1 claim to it, it's just going to become much more expensive and much harder to resolve. And so the ramifications of this bill for city operations are really quite significant. And so we are asking for a no vote. The bill is going to be up on Monday, and we anticipating it have a very large fiscal impact statement attached to it. It'll probably go to Ways and Means, where hopefully we will not hear about it again. But I do want to make people aware of it. And when you're talking to legislators, I would encourage everyone to ask them to rethink this strategy, because I just don't feel this is not going to play out as the way proponents believe it will.
Scott, a few follow-up questions, if I may, just
Sure.
to clarify. If CIS expects a $9.4 million increase to its risk insurance pool, I'm assuming that gets passed on to cities and counties in the form of premium increases?
Absolutely. I think one of our cities would anticipate a 30% increase in their tort liability coverage. So it's going to come out of services. There's just no way around that.
Gotcha. Who's advocating for the bill that we're going up against? Is this an obvious proponent, or are we seeing several subgroups?
I think there are several subgroups on it. What we haven't heard is the case where justice was denied from someone. So this is largely coming from the legislators themselves. But we didn't get testimony from somebody saying there was no case that's really highlighting the issue here, which is really unusual for bills in the judiciary committees. We usually get a very clear problem statement when we have these conversations, but that's not what's occurred this time.
Should members be talking to the Judiciary Committee before the Monday vote, or do you need them to wait till it goes to Ways and Means?
If you have, yeah, I think if you're contacting, if they're in your districts, I know that the city lobbyists are engaged on this, but if you are meeting and you do have a member on Senate Judiciary, and that would be Senators Przansky, Manning, Gelser, Lewin, and Senator McLean and Senator Thatcher.
Great. And Scott, can you, just so everybody has it, is there a link to take written testimony for that hearing on Monday that's open?
It's not a hearing, it's a work session.
Work session. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. That kind of ends it for kind of what was happening big time for us this week. We've got a general legislative update, really just one bill. That's House Bill 3634. You've heard a lot about this bill already. Michael Martin is working on this one for us that deals with an operator and training program for water operators. Michael, what do they need to know about this bill today?
Yeah, what you need to know about this bill is that it's scheduled for a committee vote on April 3rd. It's also a top priority of the Legislative Water Caucus, co-chaired by Rep Helm and Rep Owens, and that it went from 5.5 million to 3.5 million, which is in the budget ask. So after this is voted out next week, we're going to be watching it closely. It will be going to Ways and Means with a slight reduction, and just my general understanding of these is like everyone's being asked to say, hey, what can you do with less? But bottom line, bill's moving forward. So thank you everyone who reached out, and continue to keep you updated, and if we need to have that continual outreach throughout session. Thanks.
Hey, Michael, you indicated the bill will pass out successfully and make its way to Ways and Means. Ways and Means is doing a roadshow right now. Is this something or a bill that should be mentioned if people are at those Ways and Means hearings? Is something to be supportive of?
Yes, yeah, and I believe we have some bulletin articles out to that end, but yes, absolutely discuss our top 9 priorities if you go, and I think, extra bonus points if you can get there in person too, so.
And Michael, not to be overly greedy, the bill passed with 3.5 million, not 5.5. Should they be, if they do get a legislator in front of them, should they be asking for the 3.5 or shooting for the moon and asking for 5.5 million?
I think right now, hold it 3.5. I think just kind of hearing what I'm hearing right now. So that's what I would advise.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael.
Yep, thanks.
We're going to conclude the main presentation today with 2 emerging issues. So these are issues that are just starting to pop up that we want on your radar. We've got one at the national level and one regarding our transportation package framework. So we're going to start back with Jenna. She handles our tax and finance policy, as you know. Jenna, we've been hearing some buzz from the federal level that municipal bonds might be losing their federal tax exemption. What are you hearing from our partners in DC, and what do the members need to know?
Yeah, so this is probably a little delayed news for folks who were back at NLC's Congressional Cities Conference, but if you weren't there, we've been hearing probably since the new administration took place that tax-exempt municipal bonds may show up in some of the Ways and Means bills that are happening at the federal level in the name of government savings and government efficiency. So for those who don't know what tax-exempt bonds are, these are a financing tool that finance a lot of infrastructure projects for schools, hospital, roads, utilities across the nation, but also here in Oregon. Our impact right now is that 355 state and local government projects have tax-exempt municipal bonds that are happening right now. NLC has created a map. The big thing that I need from you all, and there's a bulletin article with more detail that I put in the chat, is to reach out to your congressperson with a really big, please talk to Congressman Bentz as a priority because of how the power distribution is right now in Congress. He is our one Republican congressperson, and he will have a lot more sway, but you should talk to all of them. There are 3 things that you can do right now. Request a meeting with your congressperson and bring up the need for municipal bonds and why we need them to continue to be tax exempt. If you have any projects in your city that you can share about, do that. You could also write a letter to your member of Congress, and then NLC has drafted a local resolution for folks to support tax exempt municipal bonds. All of those links are in the bulletin article. Talk to your folks and let them know what projects could be at risk and what you were hoping to use municipal bonds for in the future. There also is a white paper from when we went to Congressional Cities Conference that has some links to a map that the National League of Cities has been maintaining of all of the bond projects across the United States, including Oregon.
Thanks, Jenna. And just kind of one follow-up. If we've got people on the call who haven't had a lot of contact or outreach with their federal delegation before, can we provide them any resources or tools on how to at least connect with the congressperson, staff person to start the discussion?
Yeah, so if you do not have a direct relationship with your congressperson, shoot me an email. My contact is in the chat, and I will try to get you to at least their field director who's here Oregon stateside, if not to their main director in DC. So we will work with you to get to the right place.
Thanks, Jenna. This is a big deal for us here in Oregon. Okay, we're going to close out our emerging issues today with our Legislative Director, Jim McCauley. Jim, it feels like you've spent years working on a new transportation package, but where are we with the framework for one that might actually be passed this session, and what do the members need to know?
Sure. Thanks very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I think each week I've gotten to a Friday, and I've been hoping for some kind of structure for a framework. So effectively, what kind of a number are we looking at? Hopefully it's going to be measured in the billions of dollars, because that's really kind of the scale that we're going to need to have to address, I'll just say, ongoing needs that are out there, let alone trying to figure out how to pay for some of those projects that were directed to be built in the 2017 package that are not complete right now. So I don't have a framework, unfortunately. Next week is now the new timeline. So as soon as I get something from the Joint Committee on Transportation, I'll be certainly forwarding that to members, and we'll be basically putting together some kind of a strategy with the rest of our partners as we go forward with this session. I think what's really important today for folks, and I've actually already sent out a communication targeting a few cities, is there's two particular committee members on the Joint Committee on Transportation that we continue to hear, whether it's whispers or rumors or just flat out public statements, that the core funding formula that cities have depended on for over 2 decades now may well be in the mix of what gets cut or what gets, I'll just say, changed. So right now, we have what's referred to as 50-30-20. That is, again, the core funding distribution formula that has been used for like I said, almost 2 decades now. 50% of that state highway revenue or state highway funds goes to the state, 30% goes to the counties, and 20% goes to the cities. That's been a longstanding policy on trying to balance the need to make sure that when the funding is being collected from your local gas stations or from your local residents, that you too share in that revenue to take care of your own roads and your own transportation facilities. So what I'm asking for today is anybody who is in House District 13, which is Representative Nathanson. She sits on the Joint Committee. And anybody who is in Senate District 20, that is Senator Meek, that's Gladstone, Oregon City, and Happy Valley, to let them know how critically important that distribution formula is to your own community, because we've all got the same problems that the state has. We have an operations and maintenance gap that at the state level is over $630 million. We have a capital funding gap at the local level as well, which is well over $1 billion. And these are not 10-year figures. These are annual numbers in terms of the significance and the value that that state highway fund provides, with some other local funding that's typically available. So if the committee, for example, decides that they want to change that distribution, the 50-30-20, that's a big deal. That is a huge deal for how cities have been funded, or at least partially funded, with that state highway revenue coming forward. And there honestly is no logical explanation for it, because when you add up the amount of lane miles that cities and counties have, it's almost 5 times the scale of what the state has in their own state facilities. So we effectively could be asking for a higher percentage when you look at the overall transportation infrastructure. So that's the request. It's get out there, make sure that those offices understand how important that is, and please try to get this done. I'll just say effectively by midday on Monday. We've got another hearing that we've got coming in on Monday evening. Myself representing the League of Oregon Cities, and then my counterpart over at Association of Oregon County will be testifying. It's kind of our last chance to make a final pitch to the committee. And I want to make sure everybody also understands this has been an ongoing conversation for literally months. And that roadshow that the committee had in place over the course of the summer and the fall, I went to every single one of those. And there was not a single roadshow presentation that didn't have very clear messaging from cities and counties on the importance of 50-30-20. So a little stunned that we're still going through this conversation at this point in time, but it's important that we let these folks know.
Thanks, Jim. And just to be clear, you're really hoping for some strong stories from Representative Nathanson and Senator Meek's district to happen to be submitted before Monday. Is there any merit in people who are not in their districts to still submit testimony?
Yeah, I think it's still important to keep, your foot on the pressure on this for everybody who's on Joint Committee on Transportation. And even if they're not, to let your own state legislators know the importance of this transportation package and the importance of making sure that that funding formula stays in place.
Right. Thanks. And then we are done kind of with our primary presentation. So we're going to go down. Actually, Jim, just stay on when a question just came up in the chat. So we're going to pivot to the question and answer portion. We're going to start by calling on people who are in order. Some of these questions we've already answered, but I don't expect all of you to be in the chat. To remind you, if you have a question, you can raise your virtual hand or you can put something in the chat. We did have a question from Interim City Manager of Toledo, David Klein, asking if there was if there's any dates related to municipal bonding. Jenna, why don't you go ahead and answer that one for those people who might be on the phone and can't see it? Are there any dates we need to worry about potentially losing tax exempt status for our municipal bonds?
Not as of right now. Right now, we are on the preventative side. We are trying to prevent any language seeing the light of day that would get rid of the tax exempt status. We've gotten some assurances that there were some bills with rumors that they were going to have the municipal bond tax exemption removed in that, and that has not come to light. So right now we're just monitoring at the federal level, and I know our national counterpart NLC will let us know if they see language and if there's a specific bill that we're looking at that we need to kill. So as of right now, it's just outreach to your legislators in prevention.
Okay. And I think you said this, but just to be clear, if we get something more firm and we actually have dates, we'll share those widely.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Jenna. So another question, Jim, this is for you. This is from Councilor Lights out of Sisters. Is there a draft of a transportation funding package available yet for anyone to review?
Yeah, so no, we're still in the holding pattern for what that's going to look like. So the sequence of this will be, again, with any luck, they'll hit their target by next week to have a framework. That likely is going to be some kind of an outline. Once that probably has some additional I'll just say conversation, they'll figure out what the bill number is going to be, and we'll know probably within the next couple of 3 weeks what that looks like.
Thanks, Jim. If there's any other questions, feel free to raise your hand. They don't have to be on what we presented on today. They can be on any of the bills that you're concerned about or following yourself this session. I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to either type it in or raise their hand and do just 3 quick reminders for those of you who are on here. One of which is that our spring conference is scheduled for May 1st and 2nd at the Mill Casino. Registration is still open, but it is my understanding that there are only 29 spaces left. So if you are an official with a city who is intending to go and you have not yet registered, I've been told to make sure that you register next week because we do only have 29 spaces left for our members. In addition to the spring conference, we do have 2 trainings that might be of interest to those of you on this call, your city staff, or quite frankly, even members of some of your committees, particularly your planning commissions. We have a planning in Oregon training that's happening here in Salem on Tuesday, April 1st. It will cover everything that people need to know about land use planning and specifically how to comply with the state statutes here on April 1st. That's $249 to register. You can still register today if you'd like. We also have a public contracting training coming up. That's a virtual training, so it might be easier for several of you outside of the metro area to participate in. That training is on April 22nd. The cost is $79 and registration is still open for that. I'm not seeing any hands up. Oh, here we go. I've got one from Jenna. Jenna, I'm going to skip you first and go to Aaron Palmquist since he's actually a member. City Manager Aaron Palmquist from Oregon. What do you have, Aaron? You can unmute yourself, Aaron.
It's slow and I'm trying to get the video too. Thank you, Patty. This is just real quick, and if you can put it out later, it's a governor's bill, and it's really lined out for the Guam 1154. It's a big document, but I saw some things in there and I haven't heard a whole lot even locally, because it has some housing connection stuff in there that could or may not have some impact on housing, such as, well, I will say I support it. I think there needs to be some dialogue across. It has to do with the groundwater issues, that it would put language in that counties can say, we're putting a moratorium, no building. And if you want more information on that, I don't know where to go on that. I just want to raise that alert because it could have a negative impact on housing.
Gotcha. Thanks, Aaron. Jim, is that a bill for Alexandra? Is that why she popped on, or who's
I
bill?
was going to suggest probably Michael.
Michael. All right, Michael, can you speak to that bill 1154?
Yeah, it's something that we're tracking. So I mean, I appreciate you bringing this up and the connection to housing. So beyond that, I don't, I believe that it is, let's see, scheduled for a public hearing and possible work session on April 3rd. So keep you posted.
And to that, Michael, are there things in there that are concerning that we need to be watching?
There hasn't been anything flagged for me on the water portion of it, but I'm happy to kind of put that out there, and if there's any more we can get, happy to be helpful.
Okay, I can take a look at it and we'll see. Aaron will flag it and we'll see if we need to do further updates on it and answer any questions. There is a question in the chat from Mayor Beatty of Milwaukee. Alexandra, I do believe this one is for you. If the question is, what is the latest on the governor's housing bill? Specifically, that's House Bill 2138.
So we just got the dash, I do believe it's the -2, possibly the -3. We've seen some important changes in that section, and we already have commitments for another amendment. And I think that one is even more exciting than the current amendment. I got word late last night that the clear and objective section for public works is being removed entirely, which is fantastic news. There are some pending court cases regarding clear and objective. And so now is really not the time to try to legislate as a state, as we're waiting for word from the Supreme Court. And then we will see some additional adjustments to the traffic impact analysis section to allow for things like fee in lieu and possibly reimbursement districts. And Mayor Beatty, I do know that Jocelyn has had some recent conversations with the governor's office as well to kind of make sure you're getting things specifically related to the Cooper Mountain developments as well.
Thanks, Alexandra. And I know that we're not hugely supportive of this bill, but could you take a minute and explain why sometimes we end up neutral on bills that we still don't love?
It is the other Mayor Beatty. Sorry, Mayor. Neutral on bills that we sometimes don't love. This one, it was never going to be something that we particularly liked. I think, we've seen 5 or 6 years of pretty constant code changes from the legislative level, frequently to the same parts of statute. I think, for this one in particular, we've had some really good conversations with the governor's office. We may not like it, but for the most part, a lot of this may have some kind of staff impacts, but it's not going to have huge, large-scale impacts on the way we do business. And as a consequence, when we're talking about, things that come out of the governor's office or the legislature, and, gauging whether you're at full opposition or neutral and just quietly concerned. It's part of that calculus of if this bill was substantially worse, if it had, it's still not good. No one thinks this is going to move the needle on housing substantially, but you have to do that math. How
Thank
bad?
Thanks, Alexandra. So Jim, I'm going to kick the next question to you. This is a question from Commissioner Salacio out of Warrenton. She is planning on going to the Ways and Means meeting tonight here in Astoria. And she's asking if she should focus her testimony only on bills that are currently in front of the Ways and Means Committee or any bills that are relevant for her city or any other tips or strategies for her providing that testimony.
Yeah, I'll start this out and then I'll drop this into Jenna. But yeah, I'll say in general, the idea here is to really kind of focus in on a range of some of the budget requests that LOC is really kind of focused in on. I just dropped a link to that page that's off of our website. And I think you've also got the opportunity to be able to present what's important to your own community. There's nothing wrong in this budget process to highlight your own uniqueness that you face as a community and the importance of the state funding projects that fit those priorities. With that, Jenna, if you'd like to add any additional detail.
Yeah, I also linked directly to like our list of bills, and I tried to give you links and bill numbers to all of LOC's priorities that we've been asking for. And I would say pick the ones that align the most between your city and our priorities. The other thing is I'm going to put into the chat a link from our Lobbying 101 toolkit. So it has like how you would address the legislature, some of those more technical things. And the last thing is these budget hearings are always well attended. So I would make sure your testimony is between 2 and 3 minutes. They will likely put you on a timer, and that can, if in the moment, that can be really frustrating and anxiety inducing. So prepare for 2 minutes just in case. The last thing, it's semi-budget related, but I wanted to flag for folks because this was also in the bulletin today. A couple of weeks ago, we had a revenue toolkit webinar about different revenue tools that cities charge. It is now live on our YouTube channel, and there's a link to it in our bulletin. So I'll put that in the chat as well.
Thanks, Jenna. Is that why your hand was up earlier?
It is.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure I know what I'm doing. Jim, you've got your hand up. What else do you've got for the members?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to close with when you get the opportunity to go in front of these budget hearings, one of the things that we're going to continue to face the rest of this session is whether or not cities actually need money, as an example. And I think it's incredibly important to let them know that you're not exactly flush with revenue that's out there. We've done surveys in 24, and we know that this current fiscal cycle, there's at least a third of our cities that are facing significant budgetary challenges. And we know that as you go into this next budget cycle, that 1/3 is going to turn into 2/3. So we have to continue to educate those legislators on that fact. And I think that's perfectly appropriate to be able to bring up in these budget conversations so that they understand the significance of what you're facing locally and the significance of the state continuing to provide resources at that local level. So I just wanted to make sure we emphasize that going forward in this budget roadshow. And then the final piece for us is your lobby team sits down with the Joint Ways and Means co-chairs here in a couple of weeks, and we'll go through where our priorities are at too. So this all gets built up with the layers of advocacy that we've got going on.
Thank you both, Jim and Jenna, on that one. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. I'm going to give this about 10 seconds before I call it a day and just end by saying if you've got any questions that we didn't answer today on any bills, please contact the LOC directly and we'll see what answers we can give you. We do have a lot of resources in this week's bulletin as well on the LOC's lobbying page that you are certainly welcome to avail yourself of. If not, I'm not seeing anything else. I do have a request from Newburgh that tell them if they keep sending unfunded mandates, some cities will go under and others will have to merge. We've been communicating, I think, fairly strongly where we are in terms of our fiscal stability, but thanks for the good point out from Newburgh. We're going to end today. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I sincerely hope I see you all back here next Friday at noon. Thank you for everything you do for your cities, for for your communities at large. And thanks most of all for being a support network for your league lobbyists. Have a great weekend, everybody.